Valerie heard the front door open and hurried to the hallway. "Finally you're at home. I've been waiting for you all morning, and your mum has already arrived." The woman welcomed her husband back from a business trip. He often travelled and stayed away longer each time, but it was his job, and Valerie didn't complain, understanding the situation. "Please come in," she greeted him and his companion warmly, as Terry had not returned alone. She wasn't too surprised. Perhaps it was a new colleague, and she invited her to have dinner with them. What's wrong with that? Valerie always prepared seriously for her husband's return, and there was always a place set at the table. Terry, however, was less cheerful, and brushing aside his wife, who had rushed to embrace him, spoke to a strange woman much more tenderly than he should. Come in, Marina. This is your new home. You'll be the mistress here now." Only then did Valerie feel a slight surprise. But at first she hoped it was just a silly joke, and she began to chatter. "Please come in. The table is already set. Make yourselves at home." Mrs. Thomas also emerged from her room, watching the scene without understanding what was happening. Terry decided to clarify the situation. "Sorry, Valerie, for the sudden surprise, but as you can see, Marina is expecting a child." He pointed to the guest's rounded belly. "It's mine, so we plan to get married and live here." "But what about me?" Valerie asked, genuinely confused about what to do. "Well, it's simple. You're an adult, you have no children. You have a job, so you can manage. Pack your things and go. You can rent an apartment or something. Just don't drag this out, please." "You see," the pregnant woman cut in with a sweet smile, "I'm due in 3 months, and I can't be too stressed right now, so the sooner you move out, the better for everyone. Don't rush with your things. You can take them when you find a place. Don't worry, nothing will go missing here." Realizing that no one was joking, Valerie, choking back tears, ran into her room and sat at the table, not knowing what to do next. The sweet couple stayed in the hallway, chatting cheerfully about something. Mrs. Thomas approached her crying daughter-in-law and gently stroked her head. "Well, what can you do, Valerie? These things happen. It's unfortunate, of course, but that woman is expecting a child. You can't deny it. And you and Terry have no children. It's been 4 years already. I've been waiting and waiting for a grandchild. All my friends laugh at me." "But what am I to do? Where can I go?" Valerie cried. "Well, Terry said you can find somewhere to live, and then your life will sort itself out. Maybe you'll find another man. Terry isn't the only one. It would be good if he had a child, since you can't have one yourself." Neither Terry nor Mrs. Thomas had ever criticized Valerie for not having children. Terry appeared unconcerned, and while his mother occasionally dropped hints, she never pressed the issue. But now, all of a sudden, it was a problem. Valerie felt rejected because she hadn't been able to conceive. Yet doctors assured her that she was physically capable of pregnancy. And now another pregnant woman was here, looking over the apartment like a vulture. Soon she would be sitting at the table Valerie had prepared and sharing her bed with her husband. And Valerie was expected to accept it quietly. No way, Valerie thought. She hurriedly got dressed and left the apartment without saying a word to anyone. But as she stepped outside and felt the cold air, she realized she had nowhere to go. Her mother had passed away years ago, her father had remarried, and she no longer had a place in her childhood home. Besides, her father lived quite far away, outside the city, and going there now was impossible. She had no close friends who could take her in, even for one night. They were all married with children. She couldn't just sit on the street. It was autumn and cold. After some thought, Valerie headed to her job at the atelier. She was a trained fashion designer, and it had always been her passion. However, the owner had strong opinions and rarely considered Valerie's input, so she often ended up doing tasks far removed from her creative aspirations. Still, she was grateful because their small town offered few opportunities for her to fully utilize her talents. Here, everyone, including the boss, valued her as a reliable employee and appreciated her flexibility. With no children and a husband who was often away, she could take on extra responsibilities, arrive early and stay late. So from this point, she was very valuable for her boss. This didn't bother Valerie. She was often free and always kept the key to the office with her. She frequently locked up and opened the atelier, so why not go there now, after everyone had left, and spend the night? At least it would be warm. And she could start looking for a place to live in the morning. She entered the atelier without turning on the light and made a place to sleep. Then she lied and let herself cry, and only then she finally slept. She slept so deeply that she didn't hear the thieves who broke in that night. They targeted a recently arrived shipment of fabrics, taking the most valuable items. She only woke up when her boss arrived. As soon as he entered, he sensed something was off. At first, seeing her, he was pleased. "Oh, Valerie is already here. What an early bird. Great, there's a lot to do today." "But what's going on? Why were you in the storeroom?" "I wasn't," Valerie replied, confused. "And why is the door open? Didn't you check it last night?" He went to the storeroom, looked around, and grabbed his head in shock. "We've been robbed!" "What do you mean?" Valerie asked, frightened. "I spent the night here. You see, my husband... Well, the situation at home is such that I had nowhere to spend the night. But I didn't hear anything. I was just sleeping." "How could you sleep through a robbery?" her boss demanded. "And how could you leave without locking the storeroom? How could you come at night and leave the door open?" "Mr. Wilson, I'm not to blame," Valerie insisted. "I locked everything before leaving, and when I came back, I locked everything too. Everything was in order." "Was in order, but not anymore. All the most expensive fabrics are gone, while you were sleeping peacefully. Or maybe you let the thieves in yourself, huh? Made a deal with them?" The boss looked at her predatorily. "What are you saying?" Valerie cried, frightened, realizing it would be difficult to prove her innocence. After all, she was the only one in the building, and she had the only key. Her boss would not relent. "Well, bravo. Here's what. I won't call the police. I don't want to send you to jail, but you'll have to pay for the stolen fabrics yourself. I don't care where you get the money, but you won't work here anymore. I've had enough losses." "But I'm not to blame," Valerie tried to explain. "You won't even listen to me." "No, I won't, because I know you'll try to justify yourself with lies. I don't have time for that. Now, I have to think about how to fulfill the orders and cover the losses. That's it. Go home and think about how you'll pay off the debt. But don't take too long. I don't have much time. And ask your accomplices to help you pay off what you have stolen." Valerie, crying, went out into the street. Everyone had betrayed her. Now she had no job, no home, nothing. But she had a huge debt that she, of course, could not pay. Her boss had said to go home and think, but how could he know that she had no home and no one to ask for help, because she had no accomplices and never could have? But could it be that misfortunes could pile up like this on one person? Judging by her life, it was quite possible. Valerie walked down the street, blinded by tears. In this state, she almost got into an even more serious trouble. She nearly stepped in front of a car. She walked onto the road without looking, and if not for the young man who literally pulled her back onto the sidewalk, she could have ended up in the hospital, at best, or worse. Valerie wiped away her tears and looked at the young man. He was a homeless stranger she had seen around a few times, when he looked for odd jobs at the atelier. She managed a bitter smile. "Thank you. You saved me." "You're welcome, but please be more careful. It's dangerous to be out like this." He looked at her with concern. "Did something happen? Some trouble?" Valerie smiled sadly through her tears. What could this man, who seemed to have his own struggles, do to help? But at least she could share her story with him. He would surely understand. "Yes, something happened," she sighed. "In one day, I lost my home, my job, and my money. I'm in a desperate situation now." She briefly told him about her misfortunes, not expecting help, but hoping for some sympathy. "That's quite a situation. Well, I hope you can sort things out with your husband. You can always file for a division of property. But as for your boss, I often hang around near the atelier, and I saw insurance agents visiting him recently. That means he has his business insured, and if that's the case, he can't make you responsible for the debt." "How do you know all this?" Valerie asked, surprised. She had expected this vagrant to help her find a place to sleep at most. "I studied at a law school. Didn't graduate, though. I had to drop out. That's just how life turned out, but I know the laws and understand a thing or two. There's a decent pie shop nearby, and the owner is a very kind man. I think he might give you a job, and maybe even help with accommodation. By the way, I'm Austin." "I'm Valerie, but why would he help me?" the woman asked, sceptical. "No reason. He's just a good person. He helps many people. He helped me, for example, and I help him when I can. I still have some knowledge left." Together they entered the pie shop, and it turned out that the owner really could help. He listened to Valerie's story, gave her a bed in the room above the shop, and offered her a job. She admitted she had never made pies before, but knew how to cook and enjoyed it. "Well, that's great," the owner said. "It's not that hard." Valerie started working at the pie shop. She enjoyed her new life, and the staff at the pie shop grew fond of her too. She no longer went home. It was too painful to see her husband with his new partner. Even Mrs. Thomas called once, not to offer comfort, but to blame her, saying it was her fault she couldn't keep her husband. Maybe she was right, but Valerie didn't want to see them anymore. One day, however, she spotted her husband and his lover through the pie shop window. Austin happened to be nearby, and Valerie pointed them out to him. "Look, that's my husband and his new girlfriend." Austin looked and smirked. "I know her. That's Marina, my ex-fiancée. Because of her, I ended up in prison on false charges. 2 years behind bars, and after that, of course, no law school, nothing. So if that guy wasn't your husband, I'd advise him to stay away from her. But since he is, I can tell you one thing. He's in for a rough ride." "Oh, is she pregnant?" "Well, congratulations. But I think we'd better stay out of their sight." Meanwhile, the atelier owner, having discovered where Valerie worked, started visiting her or sending his people to remind her of the debt. He didn't mention that he had insured the atelier and was about to receive a large sum for the incident. However, Austin, seeing him one day, approached and said, "You shouldn't bother the woman if you don't want trouble. You have no right to demand compensation from her. You've received the insurance money." And that was true. Mr. Wilson had received a substantial amount, even exceeding the damages. But he didn't want to let poor and naive Valerie off the hook. Unable to stand by, Austin reported the atelier owner's actions to the police. An investigation was launched, revealing that the owner had staged the robbery himself. As a result, he was placed under investigation, and the insurance company put the atelier up for auction. Hearing this, Valerie was struck by a new idea. She could become the owner of the atelier herself, and using her talents, elevate it to a whole new level. However, regardless of how low the price might be, she had no money. None at all. Realizing this was her only chance, she decided to ask Mr. Hernandez, the pie shop owner, for a loan. She pleaded, saying she would accept any interest rate and sign any agreement. "I won't run away. I have nowhere to go. Believe me, I am sure I can revive the business and repay the entire debt within a year. And I will be forever grateful to you." It was an unusual request, Mr. Hernandez did not respond immediately. He pondered, which was natural, but after some thought he decided that Valerie was reliable and deserved a chance. After all, it was a shame to see such a good woman suffer. Besides, the amount was not that large, at least by his standards. So, Valerie became the owner of the atelier. She hired Austin as an assistant. A reliable man is always needed. Austin took on the duties of a loader and a guard. Valerie finally felt secure about the future and began actively preparing for the divorce, as Terry was strangely delaying it. Probably too busy with his young wife, but in reality, the man had a different problem. He started wondering why he had no children in his nearly failed marriage, while his mistress got pregnant almost immediately and did not tell him right away. Seeing the due date in her medical records, he realized that the dates did not add up. This led him to unpleasant thoughts, and soon he found her correspondence with some Craig, in which she said she couldn't wait to get all the money from Terry, who had believed, like a fool, that she was pregnant by him. The conversation with his mistress was difficult. He sent her back to Craig, realizing the mistake he had almost made, or perhaps already made, since Valerie was serious about the divorce. He understood that he did not want to lose someone who was making his life comfortable. Yes, she was convenient in every way. Terry rushed to his wife. "Valerie, darling, what divorce? Come back home. We were so happy together, and we will be happy again. Let's just forget about everything that happened. It was the biggest mistake of my life." "It would be my biggest mistake to believe you in return, but I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry, Terry, but I have a new life now, a very happy one, without you." Valerie was telling the truth. She was genuinely happy. She had a job she loved, her own business that she was eager to grow, and she was fully confident in her abilities. Moreover, a new feeling was stirring in her soul. She and Austin were growing closer. Valerie was pleased and wanted to make the whole world happy, except Terry, who had betrayed her so cruelly. One day, a boy of about 7 came to the atelier with an unusual request. "Excuse me, can you make me a Spider-Man costume for a school event? Everyone else will be bunnies and I want a good costume. I don't have any money, but I'm small, so it won't take much fabric or time to sew." "Of course, but why did you come alone? Where's your mum?" I don't have a mum. I live with my grandma, but she's sick and can't sew." The boy's request deeply touched Valerie. She immediately set to work, taking his measurements and finding the necessary materials. Then came the sewing, fittings, and during this time she grew very fond of the boy. She met his grandmother and decided to prepare the documents for adoption. There was only one problem. To become an adoptive mother, she needed to be married. But she had already divorced Terry and had no suitors, except perhaps Austin. She had long been fond of this young man and felt that he reciprocated her feelings, but he hadn't made any proposals. So Valerie decided to approach the matter indirectly, telling him about little Sean, her dream of becoming a mother, and finally Austin confessed his love and proposed. Soon they were married and adopted Sean. So she and Austin became a real family with a son, but not for long, as Valerie was already expecting a baby.